everyone, and thank you for tuning in to E-Comm Elevated. I'm your host, Pete from Soapbox. We made this show for listeners like you and mine who are looking to grow, build, and succeed in the e-commerce industry. However, this landscape is consistently changing with new players, ideas, and business models being introduced daily, which at times can be a lot to manage. That's why we sit down with industry leaders to discuss their tips for success, reveal their secrets of the trade, and so much more, which you can use to elevate your business above the competition. Welcome, and I really hope you enjoy the show. Whether it's creating a recipe, writing a book, or starting a new hobby, the beginning of something new can always seem super daunting. And establishing a business is no exception. There's so many questions that need to be answered, like location, product R&D, manufacturing, and even financing. Where do you start? That's where our next guest comes in. He's a second-generation entrepreneur, and he's here to share his experience and the first steps he took when striking out on his own. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Atomix Logistics, Austin Kreinz. How are you doing today, Austin?
Hey, Pete. First, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to our discussion and doing pretty well.
No, thank you so much for being on the show with us. I mean, you have so much knowledge to share with us, but before we get to that, I want to start talking about Atomix Logistics, right? What is it that you guys do?
Yeah, so simply put, we're a modern day 3PL. We've basically taken a differentiated approach to how we handle logistics, specifically for direct consumer e-commerce brands. And I'm sure we'll get into it throughout the show. But yeah,
definitely. Also, you guys opened your doors, 2 years ago?
Yeah, August of 2020.
And how is it that you're helping brands grow? Like, what does Atomix Logistics do differently than everybody else?
Yeah. So first and foremost, when we started the company, our main focus from day one was to take the approach from an e-commerce brand lens. And for me, I was working at an e-commerce brand. Prior to this, my family has a long history in the logistics industry. But it was really focused around how do modern day brands want to scale and want to grow. And so how that translates into operations in the warehouse and logistics and the greater supply chain is balancing two critical aspects to logistics is the efficiency side, but then also the customer experience side. So when we think through our model, we think very personalized and flexible. And what that means is within our warehouse, we set up micropods, which are mini warehouses. It's a warehouse in a warehouse concept. And what we do with that is we dedicate sections of the warehouse, these pods that vary in size from 500 square feet to 1,000 square feet to a single brand or a group of brand. And with that, we have a dedicated warehouse manager, pod manager for our terminology that is directly speaking and working with that brand. So they're handling the physical side, but they're also handling some customer service and communication. And we leverage Slack with all of our clients to handle that. And I can get deeper into the efficiency aspect and thinking about how many steps you're walking per day. But that's really how we think around the concept of personalizing operations tailored to these brands.
And that's pretty different from a lot of the other 3PLs that are out there, right? Usually you just get in a mass influx of orders, they fill it out, pull whatever they can off the shelves, throw it in the box and send it to the customer, right? You're really personalizing it and saying, hey, this is your success advisor, right? This is your manager. They manage just your portfolio or a small portfolio. And that's a big difference from, what everybody's used to what we're used to now. And, I think that's a big thing that you said before. Your family comes from a long line of logistics. And, being that you're in logistics, no one really just wants to get into it because there's so much involved. And I can only imagine, your father being an entrepreneur himself, really did have some type of bearing or some type of influence in choosing your own career path. How do you think that really, affected you when you were growing up? Tell us a little bit about, what your childhood looks like when you were growing up.
Yeah, I really do think that he helped mold my career early, even before I realized it. Looking backwards at kind of my early history, I never really imagined that, hey, logistics, that's the industry I want to be in. I'm not sure too many kids really do, because it's not the sexiest industry out there. It's tech, it's e-commerce, it's those industries. And for me, I think it really started with the entrepreneurial aspect to it. And like I said, before I even really realized it, and I was always attracted to starting little companies or starting little businesses, nothing at the scale or success that we are with Atomix. But I think having that kind of creative mindset to starting your own thing and building it, whether it's my older brother and I were running lacrosse camps and consulting up and coming lacrosse players in Wisconsin, because lacrosse was a newer sport. We were fortunate to start playing in middle school. And that kind of took our career, or took our early childhood out to the East Coast to attend boarding school. Then I ended up playing college as well. But growing up around that, like I said, before even realizing it, just being around it constantly really had a big impact of how we think through business today. And I think one of the biggest learnings that I've connected the dots, it's even in the 3PL market that we're in, there's thousands of players. It's a highly fragmented industry. It's the same in the last mile carrier industry, which is what my father's company operates in. And so what a really differentiator is throughout that is the relationship that you have with your partners, with your brands. It really goes a long way. And I think that's why we invest so much into our customer experience, our customer success team, and even took it into an operations type focus that not a lot of companies do that. And for us, it's, as we're kind of creating this new type of operational role, it's really interesting to learn both from a manager perspective of the ownership that they have over these brands and the relationship that they create with these brands. And then also vice versa of us. We get gifts from our brands to our warehouse team, and we also send things back and forth. So I think it's that kind of next level of just thinking about things differently. And I think that's the biggest thing that I learned through my dad's company is, again, there's a lot of other alternatives out there to his company, but he's been working with some companies for 10, 15, 20 years. And it really foundationally comes back to, you like working with people that understand you, that are similar to you, and that do a great job ultimately. And I think that's why they've been successful.
Yeah, and fostering relationships with any company or partners is just really important, right? They really do reflect, 3PL really does reflect, exactly what a business culture is like, right? You guys work really closely together and make sure that other business is going to flourish as well as your own, right? Obviously, if all these e-commerce brands are not able to make the cut, then obviously your business is going to suffer as well. So making sure that those partnerships stay open, that communication stay open. You guys do a really good job about that. In this industry compared to some of the other ones. I've used ShipStation in the past. I've used Shipping Easy, and it's not very easy to get a contact with anybody when it comes to a warehouse operating system, let alone a 3PL management partnership. It's definitely hard to get in contact with them. But you guys are definitely doing things a little bit differently. Now, right, growing up with your dad I'm a little jealous here because you have a wealth of knowledge behind you when you started off, on your own. And the amount of advice he's probably given you when you started looking into going out on your own. What piece of advice can you give other entrepreneurs when they're looking to start their journey?
Yeah. When I think about that, we've had a early success here at Atomix, but by no means we're at our pinnacle of success. We have a long ways to go. But I often am talking with early stage brand founders or students at a local college here in Marquette that are interested in entrepreneurship or interested in supply chain. And one thing that I always mention, because I feel like it's overlooked, is really around just getting started. And it almost sounds cliche, but I think at the end of the day, a biggest thing that holds us back from going off on our own or taking that leap of faith is, hey, I'm not prepared enough, or I don't know enough, or I don't have enough money. And I think this is me simplifying it, but we often make excuses for that. Cause at the end of the day, when you look, if that's truly what you want to do and you'll put everything into it, then, hey, you're going to find success. And to be honest, success can come in a lot of different forms. I mean, even with failure, even if you went through an experience of a year of going off on your own and trying it, as long as you're staying curious and interested in and listening to people and listening to your customers and really just gaining all of that knowledge of that experience, like that's a win in my books. Like, of course, we'll always read headlines of companies raising X amount of money or being this successful, but it's all comes back to of hey, the amount that I've learned from and that has changed my perception of how I was going to build this company over the last year and a half, 2 years now, has been dramatic. And without there's been so many things that I didn't know that I ended up learning throughout the process. And I think that's a really important piece to it is it's a process, and it's engulfing of both your personal life, the sacrifices that you have to make from friends or family, or even a risk of a career. And I think at the end of the day, if you think through it and you talk to the right people, and you get started, you'll find success. Like, is it going to be picture perfect of that idea that you envisioned? Most likely not. It's very few and far between. But I think at the end of the day, like, hey, if you put up a landing page, you're just out there talking to customers, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, like, hey, are you having pain points with this? Are you interested in this? And I think often we're afraid to put ourselves out there for a plethora of reasons. And it certainly is scary. I mean, I went through that experience too, as well. But I think if you kind of wrap your head around, hey, especially in the early, if you don't put too much into it, and meaning like capital and sacrificing a career in like the wrong way or something, like you're not putting too much into it. Like, just go out there and talk to people. Like, people want to help. Like, that's what I truly believe, that principle. Because I've experienced it with e-commerce brands in our industry, that they might be working with a different partner. They might be running their own warehouse, but I learn so much from them, and they're so willing to help us. Like, we've gone through different iterations of our software. They've provided feedback of even, hey, we're not working with you guys, but we want to help you guys be successful because what we're using today isn't perfect. And if we can help you build that, then that might be a win-win for the both of us.
And I mean, the entrepreneurial marketplace is just like that, right? Everybody's trying to get ahead, but we don't get to get ahead unless we help others and others help us, right? We're all learning as we go. Everything's changing dramatically. And you touched on something that really hit home. The biggest issue we have is just getting started. And the biggest one is we're just in our own heads, right? We continue to second guess our own decisions. Just make a choice and take that first step. It's the little steps that will all end up adding up to some type of success. And I want to again reiterate what you said earlier. A failure is not a failure. It's only a failure if you stop moving forward, right? You got to learn from your mistakes and continue to push forward. The headlines that you see of these multi-billion-dollar CEOs that just happen to get in these marketplaces, those are the exceptions, right? It's the mom and dad shops that hustle every single day, that, sacrifice birthdays, that sacrifice, vacations to make it work for them and their family. So thank you so much for touching base on that, because that's really, really important.
But one thing I want to add, because you brought up a good point around the concept of getting started. The second piece to that is around making decisions and making them quickly. There are very few decisions that you'll make at a company that are going to be a boom or bust decision. Most of the decisions that you make and that you think about, oftentimes in a startup, it's all about speed. And so the longer that you wait on these decisions for the 100% perfect information to make it, like, the reality is you're going to have 80% confidence or 80% of the information that you need, but you have to make a decision, because then at that point is, hey, that was either the right decision, or that was half the right decision, or wait, that was the wrong decision. We got to go back the other way. But the reality is being nimble as a startup, like, there aren't going to be those decisions that completely ruin you. But that's where I often see a lot of the hesitation with, hey, should we do this? Should we do that? It's hey, think of what the most impactful decisions that you have to make, or think about the largest bottlenecks at your company and alleviate those. And because that's what I would say is we have like the most limited resource that we have as a startup is our time. And so the amount of time that we spend like at our company here in terms of prioritization and prioritizing, whether it's a job task list for the day, whether it's a new feature request, it's all about, hey, what's the difference between this is a must have immediately versus this is a nice to have versus, hey, this will be great to have in a few months from now. So I think that's really a great point to emphasize.
And are you able to share some of the issues you faced or you have faced in the past that you obviously had some type of issue with or had to pivot after the fact? So what experiences have you had?
Yeah. So this actually would be a great example for what we just talked about. So when I was initially launching the company in August of 2020, tech and developing our own software was going to be foundational to kind of the future of our company with how I thought through scaling. I tried to get on my best friend who was working at a local family business here. He was a great mind. He worked in computer science at Carnegie Mellon and would be a perfect partner for me to have, someone that I trust highly and someone that really understands the technical building fundamentals, but ultimately I couldn't sell him on it in the early stage. So here I am. I'm like, okay, technology and developing the software is very important, but I don't have too many other solutions. And so what I ultimately had to do in that early stage was we licensed WMS software, which I know you're familiar with. And that's not out of the norm in the 3PL industry at all. If anything, that is the norm to use a third-party software to run a warehouse. And what ultimately we got from that and why it's actually was when I think back to like those moments in time, it was like, wait, how am I going to do this? And thinking about the impact, but why it was so important is over the past year and a half, we've worked in or utilize and leverage another WMS. And throughout it, we've had a significant amount of pain points with the flexibility with the customization that we needed for our warehouse that was going to be custom built for us. And by being very deep into using a software like that, I changed my perspective on how I would have built that from day one. Day one, I was like, hey, I need X, Y, Z. And this is exactly like how it's going to work. 6 months, 12 months later, it's like, oh, wait, we have to build this feature before that one, because this is the more impactful one by actually being in the business, by actually working with it. And again, that's where I get around my point of making decisions quickly and just getting started. Because once you're all into it, if you have the mindset that, hey, nothing is going to set me back, like there's always, and I may extend this a little too far, but there's always a way around it. Like if you have like enough kind of intuition or drive behind it, it's like, hey, we can figure this out and let's make it happen. And yeah, that was a really big learning for me.
And this shows what exactly entrepreneurs learn when it comes to owning their own business, right? Problem solving is number one. That's the number one thing you do as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a business professional. The number one thing you do every single day is solving problems, and being able to, recognize where the problem actually lies, and then to be conscious enough to know what to do to fix it is big, right? And that's what you've done. You've had the ability to, reach out to others and get that advice from others, but also implementation in your own warehouse has allowed you to learn and grow, right? We covered a lot of tips on, what to do when getting started and how to effectively manage the decision-making process. Now for some advice that, most of us entrepreneurs have heard in the past before, but we tend to struggle and keep in mind. And there's so much hard work and effort that goes into becoming successful that we always forget that we need to celebrate the wins, no matter how small, right? And that's something you told me earlier, and it's so important that you celebrate these wins because there are so many losses that everyone is important. What does celebrating a win mean to you?
Yeah. So around the learning point before, that's something that I've had to learn is celebrate the wins, because I often feel that, hey, I'm always looking for what's next. Like if we just closed a $50 million deal, it's like, all right, how do we double a bigger one? Like how do we, what's that next thing? Like if we're going to a bare warehouse, where's that next warehouse? How are we going to bring on more clients? What are the next new hires that we have to make? And something it was really easy to do that in the early stage because it was myself and friends and family. And we quite literally had to continue to focus on that. Now with building a team, we've scaled from 2 employees at the beginning of this year up to around 20 employees
Congratulations.
today. And I've really, thank you. I've really realized the importance of, no matter how small or big the win is, it has a dramatic effect on the culture of the people within this organization with myself. It's not just myself and our family. It's, hey, we're building a team. There's other individuals' livelihoods that are thinking on this, and we also just want to enjoy it. So whether it is a successful day of getting all the orders out in time, or a successful week of 100% attendance, or whatever that win might be, it really is important because one, it's fun and enjoyable. No one likes to just work at a place that is just like heads down working 24/7, even though I probably would enjoy that. I think that's just part of my nature and part some early career experience that I have in the financial world, which is a little different mindset to things. But in terms of a startup, like I said, a lot of our team has taken sacrifices to help build this company. It's just as fundamental. There's no other kind of way around it of just, hey, celebrate those wins. So whether it is the really small one, or whether it is your biggest deal, like, hey, like enjoy it, enjoy the process, because it really is all about the journey that you're experiencing with it.
Yeah. And you touched on it again. You're not the only one building this. A lot of people sacrifice in building a new business or a new brand. And it's really important to celebrate those people as well. And the great thing about celebrating a win, it's a great way to get those people's buy-in again, right? We're not just pushing you every single day, work harder, think smarter, be more efficient. But at the end of the day, saying that thank you is big, and it motivates people to do more, right? I will work harder for my best friend that treats me well than some no-name boss that's ahead of me that's just telling me to push numbers, right? And that's really the aspect of being an entrepreneur, is building that family at first and then watching it grow as you get bigger. Thank you again so much for being on the show. Do you have any final advice for anyone out there that hasn't taken the leap or has taken the leap and just kind of stuck?
Yeah. So I would say there's one thing that probably isn't talked about enough in entrepreneurship, in startups, in building something. And what that is it's around the mental health aspect to it. And I was asked on a previous podcast about managing stress and how you're able to manage a lot of different things going on. And I think at the end of the day, to a point you alliterated before, too, was around there's going to be more losses than wins, and I think it's really important to have a balance in your life. And again, something I was probably poor with in the beginning journey, it was, hey, this is 100% of my life. This is the focus. This is everything. It really comes down to a balance of making sure that you're in the right mindset, that you have the proper nutrition or the proper kind of daily regimen that you go through, and to not fully sacrifice everything, just in hopes of creating a successful company. And I think it's not talked about too often, because it is one of those topics where it's, hey, I don't want to show I'm weak, or I don't want to show kind of vulnerability. And so I think it's a really important thing that I try to keep in an open dialogue with our team here of that we have conversations that aren't just all professional. Like it's about personal, it's about their family. It's like, I know most of our team's family, like pretty deeply. And when people need days off, or when people just need to kind of take a step back and reset. I think it's important to understand the value to that, because that in turn is in the best case and the best decision for a business as well. It's like, hey, we're nothing more than a group of people coming together right now to try to create something that hasn't been created before. And so it's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. So there's a balance to, hey, when do you put your head down, work through hard things, but when is kind of the limit on that where, hey, you got to take a step back to take care of yourself, because that's how you take care of a business.
What an amazing thought. And thank you so much for ending the show with this, because, mental health is something that has been growing and growing on everybody's mind, especially with, the isolation that everybody suffered these last couple of years, and people are struggling right now. And it's awesome that, take the time to talk to your teammates to make sure that they're doing okay. And there's nothing else out there that shows, that a company cares more than its leadership caring about its employees. And I thank you so much for bringing that up. And if there's anybody out there that is struggling with stress, that is struggling with mental health, please reach out to someone and talk to someone. We're all here to help you. Thank you again so much, Austin, for being on the show and for all the advice you've given us. And hope to have you again on the show in the future.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Pete. And last thing I'd add to that is again, it's not necessarily around me creating this advice and creating it from nothing. Like I've been fortunate to work with some really strong leaders, both in my professional career, but also the teams, the coaches, the athletic directors that invested a lot of time into me. And I think for me, it's around soaking up as much knowledge you can from people that are a step ahead of you, or people that are at the playing field with you, or people that are your superiors or in charge of you. Like it's really around just soaking up that knowledge, because they've been through the journey that you're going through, and they can often, at a minimum, offer a listening ear, but give you direction and through their experience. Like that's where I've learned everything, whether it's from working two desks over at my dad's company when I was first starting, and having that impact on the business, to going into my athletic director's office every day, literally every day, in boarding school, just to learn and obsess over what you're interested in, and just know that there's a lot of information out there. I learn every single day that, wow, there's so much I don't know, but soak in what you can, and you'll be going in the right direction.
Great words of advice. Definitely always have to be learning, right? If you're not learning, you're dead. So you might as well keep learning as much as you can, and help yourself be successful. Thank you again, Austin, and you have a great rest of your day.
All right, Pete. Thank you very much.
Thanks again for listening. We hope you'll use some of the insights provided on today's show to elevate your own business's success. As always, listen and subscribe to E-Comm Elevated, or follow our Soapbox social media for more amazing advice. I've been your host, Pete, from Soapbox. Have a great week, and we'll see you in the next episode of E-Comm Elevated.